paper, but it's not. There we go. So Daniel chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was the king, obviously, the king of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold whose height was 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. And he set it upon the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar, the king, sent to gather together princes and governors and captains and judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image in which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So realize he's setting up, he's calling in basically his entire government, all the leaders, to come and do the grand opening of this great statue that he's made, all right? This statue is over 60 foot tall, all out of gold. It's ornate. It's kind of garish, all right? The guy's pretty proud of himself. I mean, do we know anyone like this? Maybe like a political leader who's all about maybe putting their name in like bright gold on huge buildings, anything like that? There's no one like that, right? Look, we know what this kind of person is like, okay? Nebuchadnezzar is a little bit full of himself. It's like the great thing, like in every movie. What do you find? The great villain in every movie? You show their desk and they have themselves, and then behind them they have a giant portrait of themselves. All right? Nebuchadnezzar was a little into himself, all right? So, hey, he's made this huge statue and he's calling everyone. He's like, you all need to come to this great grand opening and see this huge statue I'm building. So, the princes and the governors and the captains and the judges and the treasurers and the counselors, the sheriffs and the rulers of the province were gathered together unto the dedication of the image of Nebuchadnezzar the king, and they stood up before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people and nations and languages, that at the time ye hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, which I don't know what it is, the psaltery, the dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. All right? So he made a law decree that randomly throughout the day. Has anyone ever been in the Middle East? If you've ever been in the Middle East, all right, most of the Middle East, what religion are they? Muslim. What do Muslims do 5 times a day? Pray. There's the call to prayer. Wherever you go, you hear music go, and then normally it's a guy actually just sitting in there on a mic singing, and the Lord only knows what he's saying. I have no idea. But you hear it, and it's the weirdest thing in the world. Because you're walking down the street, and all of a sudden, and everyone just stops and like, and you're the one, American, walking around going, do I get down? What? You're just looking around, you're like, what am I missing? I don't speak the language, but everybody just stopped and got on the ground. I'm like, someone shooting? What's going on, right? This is kind of the same thing. Whenever the music went on, what were you supposed to do? Stop and worship the image of the king. And he made it law. By the way, you go in the Middle East, guess what? It's law. You have to do these things. They have religious police that will go around, and if you're not following all the rules, dressed the right way, doing the things, they'll take you, they'll put you in prison, or they'll reprimand you right there. And they believe in old school justice. We'll just take you out and beat you in front of everybody. That's what they do.
If you're American, will they show you what you're supposed to do?
No. You just better know. So yeah, we get a little bit of leeway, especially when me and my buddies were there because we all have guns. So there's a different idea. I wasn't there, but like I said, my friends were all there. So it's just the whole idea is it's a different thing. And hey, this is the law. You need to know it. So this is exactly what Nebuchadnezzar was doing. And the reason I want to point it out, this kind of stuff still goes on today. We act like it's like this thing that's never happened before and never happened since. No, it still goes on today. He went out, he made himself a golden image of himself. He said, look, it's the law, you're all going to go ahead. You are going to worship this thing. So let's see. So the herald announced it. That at that time you hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, and bus. Yeah. The psaltery, the dulcimer, and all kinds of music. Ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And whoso faileth not down and worship shall that same hour be cast in the midst of a burning fiery furnace. That was a law. You didn't do it, you're getting thrown in a furnace. Now realize this is a punishment we've used for years. This is a punishment we've used since medieval times. Burning people. It is. You think about it. What were the witch trials here in the United States? Well, if we light her on fire, if she's a witch, she'll escape and we'll prove she's a witch. If not, she's proved she's innocent. Yeah, there's no winning, right? But it sure acted as a deterrent. No one wants to burn alive. I can't think of really a worse way to die. It's awful. It's horrible. The images, the screaming, there's a reason it was used. It was meant to be terrifying. And this had the strength of law behind it. Nebuchadnezzar said, this is a law. This is what's going to happen. Now, we got to go back to Daniel and his buddies. They've already stood up to the king once, right? As kids. Remember, we talked about last week. They were just young men. When the Babylonians took the leaders of the Jews, they took the best. They took the kids that were, good looking, looked like leaders, were strong, were smart, were doing all these things. We're going to change their names. We're going to give them Babylonian names because their Hebrew names reflect the Hebrew God, the Jewish God. We're going to give them a Babylonian name which reflects our Babylonian gods. Little g, right? That's why he changed all their names. We're going to have them change all of their customs. We're going to have them dress like us, do the things we do, eat our food. And Daniel and his buddies said, no, we're not going to do that. They could have died then. They should have been killed, but didn't happen. Daniel and his buddies have already set kind of a precedent of how they're going to live their lives. They're like, we're going to do everything we can, but we're not going to stray from the beliefs of our people, and we become stronger. Now, I know I'm probably looking at this saying, you know what? They look back like, well, we made it through that time. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. How many times have we proven ourselves to be men of God? That being said, now there's a big fiery furnace. It's got the strength of law behind it. If they were to disobey, that's death. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Realize the king spoke. The king's word is law, and the king said, if you don't kneel down and worship, death. By the way, I go back to the Middle East. That's the law in most places. We look at some of our missionaries that are in these countries. They find out that you're starting a church, that's death. No, you don't worship. You're not Muslim. We're going to put you to death. You're not obeying the Muslim rules. We're going to put you to death. God miraculously protects most of these people. There's no reason they should be there. And yet they do. Hundreds of Bibles get distributed. How? But they do. God's behind it. It's amazing. We act like these things don't happen today. They do. But this is a unique story that we know. God put it down. It's written there. The conflict between the men of Israel and the king of Babylon. Hey, this is the tipping point. You know, they've kind of gone back and forth. They've gone through subsidiaries. You know, you had the guys that were watching after these young Hebrew children, and they snuck them the food, and they, you know, were doing these things, and they liked them, so they were watching them. But this is bringing them in direct conflict with the king. Kings proclaim something. It's got the rule of law behind it. We're Jews. We don't kneel down and worship anything but God. Period. Known for it. We look all throughout the Bible. This has happened over and over again throughout the Bible. People said, well, you need to kneel down and worship, and the Jews would refuse. Why? Because we're Jews. We don't do that. You realize you go throughout the Bible and you find out people are just like, well, the rule is we're supposed to worship these things. Oh, yeah, but they're Jews. They don't do that. And they just kind of let them do their thing. They're like, why? These people just refuse. They are hard-headed. You know, maybe it's a good thing God didn't make us Scandinavians. They would have ran everything. Right? Do you think Jews, you know, small, Scandinavians, big? Anyway. But the Jews were just headstrong. They wouldn't do these things. So what I'm trying to say, what we want to do is kind of put ourselves in this position that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in. These are Daniel's buddies. I'll be honest, I didn't look into it. I wanted to see where was Daniel during this. I can't remember, but he's not in this story. But I'll have to get a Bible scholar who knows and be like, hey, where's Daniel during all this? I don't know, because I'm sure had he been there, he'd have been right there with them. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're like, hey, you got to put yourself in their position. Look, we're watching this giant golden statue being built. We know something's going to happen. Then it comes out. All of the government gets together. They all come out, and the king is proclaimed, hey, when music plays, everyone's going to kneel down. Right there, they had to make a decision. Are we going to do it? Or are we going to obey God? It's only two choices. Many times in our life, we have those same kind of questions. Are we going to go with the crowd? Are we going to do the thing that's safe? Or are we going to follow God? That's scary. So, of course, when it's unveiled, what happens? The Jews do what Jews did. We're not going to kneel down. We're just not going to do it. Imagine that they're feeling. All of a sudden the music comes on, and there are those people walking around, and all of a sudden people just start kneeling down all around you. Kind of like being in the Middle East and the call to prayer comes on, and all of a sudden people start getting on their knees, and you're just standing there going, what do I do? It's not like you don't stand out. Everyone's down here, and all of a sudden you're just standing there going, here I am. Look at me. I'm obviously not part of the crowd. Well, that's exactly what happened. Then other people who saw this go run to the king. Hey, king. Remember those little Hebrew kids that you guys raised? That you put in charge of stuff. You've made them important. See, we kind of forget this. Daniel was like number 3 in the government. He was in charge of many important things, as were his buddies, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because what did we do? We took the best. We took the strongest. We took the smartest. And oh yeah, no matter what, these little Hebrew kids, when they come and take over things, it just does well. It's almost as if anything they do, God blesses. You know, it's funny. You don't have to be a saved person to realize that good things happen to saved people. One of my favorite Stories I heard about was when we had a little church when we were in San Diego. We had a teeny little church in a strip mall. All right? Sound familiar? A bunch of Baptist churches. I don't know, maybe go to Fernley. A Baptist church in a strip mall, right? Yeah, there's one here too, yeah. So, anyway, it's just a little strip mall. Well, the funniest thing is our church was in a strip mall. It used to be a auto zone. They had ripped out all the counters. We'd done everything. The funniest thing we found out was the owner of the property was definitely not Christian. And the manager of the company was not Christian. But he also said, every single mall I put a church in, the entire building does better. Every business. So for our church, we paid half rent than any other business in there. And he said, every single one I've done, the entire building does better. That church, we moved in. There's one other business that was barely hanging on. We moved in. 3 years later, we got forced out because every business had grown and the church had outgrown the building. And we're like, we want to expand, and all of them want to expand. And finally, the owner's like, hey, I can make more money by these guys being gone. You know, I went back there about 4 years ago. It's all empty. As soon as the church left, within a year, all the businesses started closing again. And the funniest thing was, the property manager said, I even warned him this would happen. He said, why? He goes, he wasn't a believer, but he goes, I know when I put good churches in these buildings, they do better. Why? Because wherever God's people are is somehow blessed. He wasn't saved. Owner wasn't saved. But they saw what happened. Guess what? King Nebuchadnezzar wasn't an idiot. Why did I put these little Hebrew children in charge of stuff? Because anything they touch, God blesses. Everything I put them in charge of does better. Do you think that ticked off the Babylonians? Come on, anyone ever had a new guy come into work and does everything better than you? Didn't that just tick you off? Now, I'll be honest, when I was out there on the base, I liked the kid. He's great. But I've been working out there for 8 years. We got a brand new mechanic in, a jet mechanic. This kid I always call him a mechanic savant. All right? He's just like everything he touches. He's just a genius. Picks everything up, sees it once, knows it inside and out. And literally within like 2 months, it's like, I'm going to him to ask questions. I'm supposed to be the one to go to. Why is this new guy so much better? It kind of ticked me off. Do you think that happened to the Babylonians? Yeah. So they wanted to point out, hey, Nebuchadnezzar, he's not doing what he's supposed to. We've all done it as kids. You know. Go clean your room. She's not cleaning her room. They didn't do their part, so they pointed it out. Nebuchadnezzar gets mad. He's angry. So if we go down, that's all what's happening throughout this. If we go down in chapter 3, verse 22. So all these guys have come. They've told them, hey, these guys aren't doing what they're supposed to. They're not doing what the king said. So he said, therefore, because the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flames of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So, what happened? Guys came and said, hey, these little Hebrew kids, they're not doing what you're supposed to. We all knelt down, and they were just standing there like, what's going on? Hey, aren't you supposed to kneel? I'm a Jew. I don't kneel. That took a lot of bravery. What do you? You need to kneel down. I'm a Jew. I don't kneel. As a Christian, sometimes people are like, hey, we're going to go do this. It's what everyone does. Look, it's just normal here. Now I'm a Christian, man. I don't do that. Might as well hold up a big old sign that says, look at me. I think I'm better than you. That's what people think. It's like, dude, it's not that I think I'm better. I just don't do it. No, you think you're better than me. You think you're above the law. You think you're special. That's what was getting thrown at these guys. Ticked off the king. King says, that's it. He actually gave him a chance. He's like, go ahead and kneel down. We're like, dude, we're not going to kneel down. We're not going to do it. We worship the God. We worship the true God. We worship the God of Abraham, Isaac. Thank you. I was like, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Thank you. See, that's a pastor. There you go. Bail me out here. Brain's not working. We're not going to do it. We don't mean to insult you, King, but we will not do that. We will not go against God. We'll do whatever you ask us to do, but we will not go against God. And basically, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't say, but I'm sure the king had guys in his ears like, oh, they think their God's more important than you. They think they're special than you. They think that your word doesn't mean anything. Why, they're not even following their own advice, because doesn't it say that they're supposed to respect the authority that's placed over them? Aren't you the authority? Anybody ever heard these little sayings? It's whispering, man. And they get the king mad. They get him hot. When I say they got him real hot. It's like, that's it. Crank up the furnace. Fire it up. I want it now. He said because it was so urgent, it was 7 times hotter than it ever been. Now, you guys ever dealt with something that's really, really hot? It's weird. Okay, I do it with jet engines, all right? You see it's like metal glowing red. Do you think that's hot? That ain't even hot yet. It turns white and then almost see through it. You get a jet engine hot enough, you can actually look and see the blades spinning inside the metal case. It's cool as can be. One of the neatest things you ever see. It goes red to white to dang near clear. I mean, it's like translucent. You can kind of see what's going on behind it. Now, I don't know. This is just my little brain because of how I work. When they say they got the furnace so hot, I'm thinking to myself, that thing wasn't glowing. That thing went to white. It was there, and they could kind of see the shadows of what was going on inside of it. They had that sucker fired up. King was hot. He's like, that's it. I'm throwing these little Hebrew kids in there. And those of us that think, well, maybe it wasn't really that hot. What we just read. These men were bound in their coats and their hosen and their hats and their garments, and they are cast in the midst of the fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire slew the men that took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It was so hot, the guys that had tied them up and were throwing them in died. That's hot. That's real hot. That's, that ain't, a Death Valley on a sunny day. That's the sun. So he took the kids who we left all their clothes on them, bound them up, hucked them in, and then died from the heat. You guys ever seen everyone that works in a furnace? That works like in a casting place? It's crazy. It's the coolest thing you ever see. There's a guy, you wear all metal. You'll wear like a metal fire suit. And the funniest thing, I'll see him go in and they'll get like the steel, pieces of steel, like cords and whatnot, and they're pulling it out and it's glowing red. And there's one guy's job that all he does is throw water on that guy. Because it's so hot pulling it out of there. He's wearing all his protective gear, and all there is just steam coming off of him, because whenever he moves, this guy's literally got a bucket of water, and all he's doing is just throwing water at him. Throwing water at him. Throwing water at him, and the steam's just coming off. Because if he didn't, he would burn, he would die. That's how hot this furnace was. The guys just took him in like, ugh, dead. Probably screamed, has their lungs seared, all sorts of crazy stuff. So everyone's like, well, hey, it wasn't really that hot. Maybe Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the Bible's just, they were in a furnace that had a little fire going. It wasn't hot yet. No. It was so hot the guys that took them there died. So therefore the king's command was the furnace was seeming hot. And the three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound in the midst of the fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up with haste and spake, and said unto the counselors, all the guys whispering in his ear, did we not cast three men bound in the midst of the fire? Hey, didn't we just throw three guys in there, clothed and bound up? And they answered and said unto the king, true, O king. He answered and said, lo, I see four men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. The king, a lost man, looked in there and was like, wait a second. The counting thing, I think of a buddy of mine. Got to tell you a quick story. Marine story. He was a grunt. So he's an infantryman. So he goes, in one of our training schools, you got to go around, and your job is to go around. We're doing training. We're doing training for basically guerrilla tactics training and how to do counterinsurgency and all this stuff. So he goes, we go in and we're going against our instructors. Well, he said, here's the funniest thing. He goes, I'm walking, the fire team get thrown together. He goes, and I'm the third guy back. I'm the third guy from the end. And he says, as we're going around and we're doing everything, you stop, hey, is there something going on? We're sneaking around. And he goes, I just happened to look. And I'm like, I thought there were two guys behind me. I only see one. That's weird. All right, well, hey, we need to get going. So get up, go, and it's like all of a sudden he goes, next time we stop, I turn around and I look, and I'm going to, they're sending signals down. You do hand signals and all this. And he goes, I hand signal, and I acknowledge the guy in front of me. Then I hand signal the guy behind me, and I look, and I don't see him. And I'm like, so I go up to the sergeant, like, hey, wasn't there two more guys behind me? He's like, I don't know, let's just go. He goes, well, now I'm getting nervous. I said, why? Because there were two. Now there's none. I'm the next guy. Well, sure enough, it was guerrilla tactics, and they were snatching guys off one at a time. And he goes, we started walking, all of a sudden, and he goes, and then I found the other two guys. Where were they? We were bound up, and we were being held captive. So he goes, but that's what ended up happening. And you always tell the story. He's like, I always say, Nebuchadnezzar, 1, 2, 3, and 4. He goes, well, I was always looking behind me. There's 1, 2, and I'm 3. And then next time I looked, there's 2. I think Nebuchadnezzar's like, there was 3, right? Who else went in there? Was it one of the guys that I sent down there? No, they died before they even got in, dude. They tossed him and died. They didn't fall in. Well, who's in there? Not only are they in there, they're not laying there like logs. They're just walking around. And that one, something different. It's like the Son of God. It's bright. It's beaming. I can barely look upon him. There's glory showing. And these guys are just chilling. They're on a Sunday stroll. Like, ooh, it's nice in here. Toasty. The king actually acknowledges that the God of these men is a true God. Much like that property owner look and be like, I'm not a Christian, but I do understand that the God these guys follow is amazing. does amazing things. We live in that good Christian church. Guess what? Everyone's blessed. Even the king's like, whoa, these guys, God's this dude's bad, man. I can't even kill him. Now what do I do? But we have to look at what we can do. I mean, we need to apply this to our lives. Are we willing to stand up for God and what we believe in? When everyone else is going the other way. When our world says, hey, God's not important. God's not special. What's the big deal? Hey, aren't you a Christian? Can't you do all things? Through God? Is it okay for you to do all things? Well, Paul even said, look, through God I have freedom, but it's not all good for me. Can we do this stuff? Yeah, we can. We have free will. But we can choose not to. He said, hey, can you do that? I could, but is that what's best for me? Look, we're all adults here. Can we eat cake for breakfast every morning? Sure. Is anyone going to stop you? No. I mean, hey, I go to Buddy Boys. It's religious, man. It's fruit and bread. That's biblical. An apple fritter, man, that's just me trying to be a good Christian, right? Can we do it? Is it okay? Is it what's best for us? Is it going to make us stronger? It's going to make me harder to kidnap. The old saying, right? Why are you fat? Because I'm harder to kidnap. Yeah, unless you got a donut truck. Look out for them vans with no windows. No, not that one, the donut one. We need to make decisions that we're going to follow God, that we're going to follow Jesus. We're going to follow those things that have been given to us. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had all chosen to do that. They started as kids. They said, look, we're not going to stray away. And did they get tested? Constantly. As a Christian, are you going to be tested? Constantly. Are you going to mess up? Yes. Yeah. Just take your head and put it up and down. You know what I mean? You're going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes, but Lord forgive us. Lord's going to give us strength. You're going to be tested. You're going to sometimes fail. Let's hope we don't do it the big ones. Follow God. But we have to make that decision now because it's not going to get easier. And realize, this wasn't the first test that they were given. The first test was, are you going to eat the king's meat? Look, man, I'm a meat eater. You throw a nice ribeye in front of me. Are you going to eat that, or are you going to go over there and have vegetables? What do you think I'm going for? Look, there's a reason I'm on blood pressure medication. They said, hey, we can change your diet. Yeah, that ain't happening. I'll just be honest with you, Doc. Well, you can eat vegetables and cut out this, this, and this. Yeah, what's the other option? Why? Because that one ain't happening. I'm just going to tell you. That one's not going to happen. Okay. But they had made this decision. They started with, hey, look, we're going to stick to our Hebrew diet. Why? We still have these standards that we're going to hold to. We have standards of how we're going to dress, how we're going to talk, how we're going to do these things. Does it make it better? No. Was it better for us? Yes. Did it set a precedent in our life? Yes. It set a precedent that we're going to follow God regardless. That, you know what, sometimes we're maybe going to look a little different. Not a big deal. They got challenged. They made that decision. They're going to follow God. What happened was we found out, what we need to remember, Jesus is going to protect us. He protected them in the fire. The fire that killed the men that took him in. Now, it doesn't get into it, but if you look at here, it was mighty men. These were soldiers. These were big, bad dudes. These were teenage, snot-nosed little Jewish kids. Big, bad dudes died. Teenage, snot-nosed Jewish kids are wandering around inside of a furnace. Just chilling. They said when they went and got them out, they didn't even smell like smoke. Nothing singed. They're good. Hey, where'd that fourth one go? Now there's only 3. Because Jesus is in there protecting them. He said, hey, I'm with you. When? All the time. I'll comfort you. Jesus is going to comfort us. Sometimes we're going to go through that pain. Sometimes there's going to be some things that are difficult, scary, not always the most comfortable. God's going to protect us through it. Helps us to be obedient. Look, they didn't step out and just do this right away. If you notice something all throughout the Bible, when God talks about these leaders of faith that we're to look to, most of them started as children, and you look at it, well, there were little things that led to the big things. Because they could look back and be like, well, God got me through this. He got me through this. He got me through this. He got me through this. Well, if He can get me through all these things, He can definitely get me through this. That's the way our life works as a Christian. We got to be obedient to God in the little things so we can be obedient to God during the big things. We are creatures of habit. And we need that reassurance. I'll just tell you, you can't all of a sudden be like, hey, I'm going to go to the middle of a Muslim country and stand up and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and start a church and distribute Bibles in a Muslim country. And that's the first thing I did as a Christian. I don't think I'll have any problem. I won't waver, and I'm not scared of anything. No. How about the first thing is you just start being obedient and going to church on a weekly basis. Hey, maybe cut some of those other things out of your life. How about we clean up your language a little bit? Well, everyone I work with talks like that. Yeah. And? I was preaching myself. All right? But God protect them. God will protect you. It doesn't happen right away, but God will protect us. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable. Right? Realize whenever we grow as a Christian, it's not comfortable. It's not easy. That's what makes us stronger. There's an old saying about how lobsters and crabs get bigger. Have you ever seen a lobster or a crab? They have an exoskeleton. So which means they're soft and squishy on the inside, and the only way that they get bigger and stronger is they get real, real uncomfortable and eventually break that shell. And then they need to go hide because they have no defense against anything until their new one forms. But if they never got uncomfortable, guess what? They never get bigger. They never get stronger. They never become dominant. That lesson kind of applies to us as Christians. If we don't get uncomfortable, we ain't growing. If God's not pushing you, you're not going to do anything. So God's always going to push you. And He's like, well, God, I really don't like this. Is kind of uncomfortable for me. That's kind of the point. You're not going to get stronger unless I make you uncomfortable. I don't really know about teaching a class. That's okay, you're going to do it. Okay, I'll teach little kids, but the one thing I'll never teach is teens. Hey, guess what? We need someone to run the teens. Hey, we need someone to teach in Sunday school in the mornings. I really don't like getting up early. Well, too bad. Will you do it? Yeah, I'm willing, God. Do you know what you're doing? Not a clue. Guess I'll figure it out. A little bit of guidance, a little bit of help. It's fun, but it makes you grow. I'll say it helped me grow to start teaching classes. Because I'll tell you this much. Sitting here in class, you can learn something. Trying to teach a class, you learn way more. You don't learn anything until you start teaching. I'll be honest with you. You guys never had the opportunity to teach something, you really want to learn, you really want to get in God's Word, start teaching. The best one is actually kids, because adults will kind of like gloss over it and be like, oh, okay, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Kids will be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Just like this lesson. Well, where was Daniel? I don't know. Well, why not? They'll get in on you. It's fun. You're like, oh, I better know what I'm doing. Like I said, look, God's done weird things to me. Like I said, I had a little preacher I was mad at and I didn't agree with. He tricked me into reading the Bible. Then I started to teach classes. That's pastor's way of tricking me into reading the Bible more. It's amazing what happens, though, right? God's going to make us uncomfortable. He's going to protect us through it. Jesus will protect us even through the fire. And what can happen, like I said, we can walk faithfully through that fire and through the things that went on. Then Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, that they defied the king's word and yielded their bodies, and that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God." That was the words of Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah. He says they wouldn't defile themselves, and they only serve their big G God, not my little gods. That they were so brave that they would go against me. You know, this was Nebuchadnezzar admitting. He's like, look, I've kind of propped myself up as God. Look, I built a giant golden statue of me. Like I said, dude, that's like the perfect Bond villain. I want a picture of me in front of a giant statue of me, holding a portrait of me. Going, yeah, but they could defile me because they serve the big God. You realize that he realized who God was, and yet he still never turned? It can happen. But as Christians, we're not going to be able to show that big G God unless we're willing to go through the fire. Unless we're willing to set in our lives like, you know what? I'm going to follow God no matter what. Even though it's uncomfortable. Even though that maybe sometimes that I can be threatened with something. I'm going to be the one that stands out and looks weird. And everyone says, oh, do you think you're better than me? No, man, I don't think I'm better than you. Well, you sure act like it. I never acted like anything. I just said that it's my choice, and I don't do that stuff. Oh, so you think you're special. I got that one. Hey, we're all going to the bar. We're all going to go have a few drinks. Well, you don't have to drink, but you should go with us. No, man, I just don't go in there. Why, you think you're better? No, I don't think I'm better. I just don't go. Well, why not? Can't you go? I can. But it's not going to do any good. I just don't do that. I've set myself up, and in my life, and what would happen if someone saw me go in there? There's going to be an assumption. That's why I don't do it. I'm not saying anything. Well, you just think you're better than me. No. I serve God, and this is a standard that's been set in my life, and I'm just trying to follow it. You see how uncomfortable that is? We just do that right now. It's like, oh, I feel icky. But we need to be able to look and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to follow this example. Because God's going to protect me through that fire. Because those same people that do that, when they really get into trouble, hey, man, what's so different about your life? You seem happier. Why doesn't this get you down? How is it you could be okay? Look, I'll use myself as an example. How is it you could be okay? You lost a job and you didn't have a new one. How is it you weren't stressed out? One, I can't change it. Number two, God's looked out for me for all these years. He's going to look out for me. I'll be okay. I might need to learn to tighten my belt. Look, I got plenty of room. I got plenty of room to tighten. God's going to look out for us. But we have to have it set in our heart that I'm going to follow God first. You can't decide, hey, the proclamation's come, now what are you going to do? No. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego decided way back here when we were kids that we're going to follow God no matter what. Because in that moment, When everyone's kneeling down and doing what's supposed to be done, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to have the strength. You're going to do what a lot of us did in the Middle East. We're looking around, and all of a sudden the call to prayer goes, and people start getting on their knees, and you just kind of go, am I supposed to be? What just happened? You gave in, not even meaning to. But you hadn't set in your heart that I'm not going to do that ahead of time. And the pressure was around you, and you weren't sure what was going on. You didn't know what this was. You didn't know the semblance of it, and you didn't know how important it was that you didn't do it. They decided way back then. As Christians, we need to decide now that, hey, I'm going to follow God regardless of what's put in front of me. Why? So in that moment, that little light bulb goes off and it's like, whoa, wait a second. This isn't what I should be doing as a Christian. Hey, you know what? You guys have a good time, but I'm not going to be a part of it. Well, we're going to ostracize you. Okay. Church won't. I'll go to those people. They dig me. I don't know why. But we have to do that. That's how we need to apply this to our lives. To have that bravery. To be able to look and be like, hey, you know what? No matter what we're called, no matter if someone changes our name, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, Daniel, Belshazzar, I'm going to keep my identity as a Christian. I'm going to do what a Christian does. These guys knew that I'm a Jew and I'm going to do what Jews do. They didn't have any adults with them. They didn't have anybody. They had each other and they said, hey, you know what? We are not going to do that thing. That's why it's so important we come to church and we go around. We aren't going to do that thing. You're not alone. We're here for you. Hey, I think I might have messed up. Yeah, you did. But that's okay. We got you back. We need to decide that in our hearts so that we can be that good, strong Christian. And we can go through those fires and those trials. They're not all going to be easy. Some are going to be tough. And you're going to see people fall by the wayside while you do it. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The guys throwing us in, they didn't make it. We did, but they didn't. Let's close this morning in prayer. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for this time we spent together. Look at these stories that you've given us. Lord, I apologize. I went over on time, but Lord, I think it's so important that we apply these principles to our lives, that we make a decision to follow you, that when those hard times come, we will follow you. That we need to determine in our hearts now that we're going to follow the leadership and the ideas that you have in your Bible, Lord, that we're going to follow God, that we're not going to follow the crowd, that we're going to be different. And Lord, that we want to reflect you, that you will protect us through those tough times, and that we can come out on the other side. That, hey, we're not going to smell like fire, and nothing's going to be on our head, we're going to look sweet, and people are going to be able to go, hey, there's something different about them. Their God is very different than the God of this world. Now, Lord, I just pray you be with us this morning, be with the lessons that are taught. In your precious name, amen.